everybody. Welcome to Squared Up. I'm Bill Swinford.
And I'm Monica Daniels.
We're here at our studio doing another episode of this podcast from the Swinford Media Group. Mm-hmm. And we just got a nice note from somebody. I was just reading this letter to you. A man named Ren Barra, mm-hmm. who is acting like he's a super fan. And he lives near Austin, Texas. Yeah. Originally from Heron. If you're from Heron, you'll recognize that name as Barra, as being an Italian name that has a lot of heritage, history in our town. And Ren is one of the Barra family. His uncle ran Barra's Tavern back in the day, which is now the Frenchman's Widow.
Oh, we were just there
and
not too long
so
ago.
Good.
It is so good.
So good. And that big long bar that they have out at Walker's Bluff came from Barra's Tavern. And that's the reason that Cindy Bunch and Walker's Bluff bought the building, and now they own Frenchman's Widow, and it's just all worked together. They built a new counter, built a new bar in there, and it's a nice place to go. And another building with a lot of there's a lot of history in Heron, as we've talked about before, and as you and I have talked about before, including in that building. But his mother was Ida Barra, and Ida was the city clerk in Heron back in the 70s and early 80s. Up until around the time my dad was mayor of Heron. Actually, while Dad was in office is when she retired. I remember her being a great lady, and it was great to hear from him. He gave us a shout out in his letter. He enjoys the podcast. He mentioned you and
I loved reading his letter. It was so encouraging, and just how people, even though they've moved on and moved away because of jobs or whatever, they're still interested in what's happening here, and they care about their hometowns and how the area is developed and continues to grow.
There's something special about this area, I think. The towns in particular that we cover with the Marion Star, the Heron Independent, the Carterville Courier, there's a lot of just like emotional connection for people that grew up in these towns. And whether you stay here, whether you eventually move on, you want to come back and visit. I hope if you haven't visited in a while and you're from the area that you will come back and visit, especially look at some of the great things happening in the downtowns of these communities.
And one thing that I love too that's happening here that really touches my heart is, we went to a funeral a couple of weeks ago, and we drove through so many just charming small towns that were just simply dying out. Simply the houses were abandoned, the buildings were closed, and and like so much of small town America is starting to kind of fizzle out. And then just living in an area that still has all of the small town charm and is bringing in some big city perks. Yeah. And and is actually growing, and you see life, and it just warms the heart. That's the best part. Some of the best parts of America, small town apple pie and all of that, is still thriving and growing, and is still, if you're not from here, to come here and experience it and enjoy it. And it's a great place to move too, because we have all of these new jobs that are coming into the area.
Yeah, and we will acknowledge that we have an advantage here that a lot of people don't even think about, but akin to the days when you talk about your dying small towns. Mm-hmm. Well, Cairo, Illinois, has been that for a century now, mm-hmm. and down at the crossroads of two great rivers, the Mississippi and the Ohio. And yet, as of course river traffic is slowed to next to nothing, and transportation happens differently than it did 100 years ago, that town no longer has the economy that it once did. Well, we're blessed in that Marion and our surrounding communities are on what is now the river traffic, which is the interstate highway system, and we have within 40 minutes of us, three major interstates, including I-57 that runs past us. So we know that is a big part of it, and it gives us an opportunity that some of those other towns that you go those 2-lane roads working up Illinois didn't have. But it still takes innovation. It still takes people. You see it just in our local towns. You have some towns that take advantage of what we are offered as far as tourism that's going right past us every day on the interstates. and some towns that aren't taking advantage of that. And we're blessed in Marion and Heron and our surrounding towns to have some forward-thinking people that are trying to find creative ways to pull people off the interstate and to not just stay for a couple hours, but stay for a couple days. And you see a lot working in that direction. So the continued development of Marion's downtown is something that, of course, we talk a lot about with our Squared Up podcast. We are based on Marion's Tower Square. And to me, that's going to be the heart of the whole thing. I mean, there is going to be the sports tourism element, and there's going to be the renovation of the old mall, and there's going to be new businesses, new hotels, lots of restaurants growing up out on the other side of the interstate. But the heart of Marion is going to continue to be our downtown. And there was a time when it didn't look like that was going to be the case. And now the renovations that are happening and the growth that is happening, we just took a little walk around what they've done so far on the square this morning. And we were so impressed, at least I was, with this innovation that they have done just in the infrastructure of the square and how you get around.
Yeah.
Tell people a little bit about it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more walker pedestrian friendly for sure. And especially, coming from my perspective, since I did not grow up in Marion, and, walking around or even driving through the square, it was always a little bit nerve-wracking because I know there were different yields at different places, and I was always trying to figure out who has to yield and who doesn't. And, people were trying to also take their shot and dart out the pedestrians to get across as well. So, you're always looking for cars, looking for people and bikers. And, but like the past couple of days that I've gone through the square, the flow of traffic has been so much easier to navigate. And even, I've walked it a couple of times. We walked it this morning. Also, a lot easier to navigate, a lot simpler. So it's just someone who's just coming straight in, has no experience with the Marion Square. It just makes more sense now. And
right. First of all,
yeah.
as far as the traffic goes, and the car traffic, it is now a true roundabout, operating that way. And I'm been a little surprised first few days, haven't seen a single accident, because it does take people getting used to who's supposed to yield now and who's not. And basically a roundabout is you yield until you find a spot to get in, and once you get in, you're in as long as you want to be. You could circle that square all day long without stopping if you felt like it.
If you wanted to, right?
If you wanted to, but once you get in, you've got the right of way. And it's really, I remember when we did our first roundabout in Marion, and it was at the intersection of Boulevard and Russell Streets, next to St. Joe's Catholic Church. There was a little bit of scoffing there about, like, what is this? It was our first roundabout. It seemed like an odd thing because we used to have just a four-way stop there. Well, Russell Street is a busy street, especially on school mornings when people are trying to navigate their way to the junior high, which is just on up, just south from there on Russell Street. And you would get up to those stop signs, and you would be 10 cars deep waiting for people to take their time around. And then all of a sudden people caught on to this idea of the roundabout. And not everybody, it's still true that not everybody's got this thing figured out. But once you do, it seems very safe, and it certainly moves the traffic. And like I said, I think we've seen already that's having a good effect.
Oh, yeah. And last night, as I was driving around the square, the fountains were all lit up, the music was playing, and it's still just one of my favorite spots to visit and to kind of relax and have my coffee from Crown Brew.
Yeah. So anything that just makes it a more peaceful, safe experience with all those other elements you mentioned is a good thing. I wanted to give a shout out though to the gentleman who did the engineering on the footpaths around the square. And so we found out what those were called. Did you mention that already?
No, we haven't talked about that.
Okay. So I found out from Jennifer Olson, who's the Director of Economic Development for the City of Marion, that these things are actually, this is actually a Department of Transportation name for them. These new things that they've put in where there used to be these triangular planters at each entrance to the square. And they were just there to just like, I guess, just to kind of show you how the road's separated and to slow you down so you didn't run into these concrete planters full of flowers. They were pretty.
Yeah.
They were put in when the square was redone in the early 70s. But now what they've done is they have a lower profile kind of triangles which you can actually pass into the middle of. And so they have a little bit of a decent sized curb, so you're still somewhat safe from somebody just running up on you. They offer these little crosswalks from each sidewalk on the circumference of the square into the middle, and then new crosswalks crossing into the center of the square. Jennifer says these are called, I love this name, they're called medians of refuge.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There have been times before when I'm crossing through the square, I feel like I need a little refuge from the traffic,
median of
from all the
refuge.
traffic darting through. Yeah.
Yeah. And
It gives you time. It gives you a place to stop and wait for your next opportunity to pass, instead of trying to make it all in one.
And if there's a lot of foot traffic getting around the square, it feels like you can get probably 10 people into a median of refuge at a time as they are working their way around. And it seems very easy to navigate right now. Now, if traffic was heavy and foot traffic was heavy, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But we want to give a shout out to Horner Schifrin Engineering, who designed this for Marion Square. In particular, Cody Moak, our chief of staff at City Hall, said it was, here we go, Joe Zdankovic. I'm real confident that is how at least some people pronounce his name, because that's the way it looks. Zdankovic. I hope that's close, Joe. But thank you, Joe, for what seems, I think, is a brilliant plan that is going to go really nicely, again, with these new pavers they're going to put in that kind of, again, really accentuate the pedestrian areas as opposed to the high traffic areas. Now, there will still be parking on the square. Some people are confused by that. There'll still be parking. It'll still operate much the same as it does now, but it'll be really clear where you drive and where you walk. Yeah. And the walking with these medians of refuge feels a lot safer. So good job, Joe.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Joe.
And we experienced it ourselves, and we enjoyed it a lot. So all those places that are around the square, the vault, obviously.
The vault.
We mentioned City Hall.
Granny Puckett's is back and better than ever. Yeah.
So all of the businesses that are going around the square and are already in place around the square are going to have just a great setup for them to both, as I said, bring in customers both on foot and in cars.
Yes.
And there will be all that parking on the square still, but plenty of parking, as we remind people, within a block or two of the square. It's going to look great. You know, you think about the vault, you think about City Hall, as we mentioned. Who else?
Milkweed Provisions is up there. Glacier's End is right around the corner there.
Granny Puckett's. And Little Nashville.
Little Nashville is reopened.
Yeah, and we
excited,
mentioned before. I think that we've been there. I talked to Aaron Smith, the owner, yesterday. He said that it's been a little slow getting going, and part of that I think is people have just kind of right now kind of ruled out coming downtown because it just appears that it's just a mess of construction. But it's really kind of coming together, and so we encourage people to get out and check out Little Nashville Thursday through Sunday evenings. Still a lot of good music and good food to be had there. One of the other things that we are going to do is take a little visit to some church camps.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's this summertime, and camps are in full effect, just sending kids off to the camps.
There's lots of camps that operate, church and otherwise,
Yeah.
around the area. There's a bunch of them. I pass signs all the time and hear good things about these camps. We're going to visit a new one for me, Camp Oxford, on the other side of Harrisburg. A couple of kids from the church that I pastor, Pleasant Grove Church, are attending. We're going to go visit them today, and we're also going to go visit Sophia, my daughter, at Beulah Holiness Camp in El Dorado. Did you ever go to camp, church or otherwise, when you were a kid?
No, I didn't. But I was a camp counselor for a YMCA camp in Potosi, Missouri.
Okay.
And that was a really great experience. So I was with the teen girls, 15 years old, around that age. And we did a lot of kayaking and caving. We went down into the caves. And
Sounds like a fun camp.
it was a really fun camp. Yeah, a lot of swimming, a lot of arts and crafts and horseback riding. It was really singing.
There are a lot of camps on along Little Grassy, scout camps, church camps. There is the Touch of Nature camp out there. A lot of camps that students at SIU use.
Yeah, and my son was actually just accepted to a camp this summer at Washington University in St. Louis. It's an engineering camp, so he wants to, when he graduates from high school, he wants to go on and get a nuclear engineering degree.
Right.
So
it's more like an on-campus kind of camp. Yeah.
He's going to be on campus experiencing the college life, and he's really excited about that. I don't know how you can be excited about a nuclear engineering camp, but he is. So,
Well, some people
I'm happy for him. Yeah.
I'm grateful some people are excited about it.
Yeah, we need that, right?
Like he and our other engineer we just mentioned, Joe Zdanovich.
Yeah.
If we didn't have these engineers,
Yeah.
where would we be, really?
Yeah.
So
In engineer camps.
and Seth is brilliant, and he's gonna do great things.
He is. Yeah.
Okay, we just had a few things to mention this week. Did you want to bring up our book this morning?
So we've been reading through this book, Who Switched Off Your Brain by Dr. Carolyn Leaf, Solving the Mystery of He Said, She Said. And one of the things that she just keeps wanting to pull out to help us get along better with each other, and I think it's such a really great point that we need to think about, is that so many times when we get kind of into communication, sometimes we can kind of unravel into some selfishness where it becomes more about wanting to get our point across and not taking the step back to pause and listen to the other person and hearing what their point is. And so, she talks about, how our thoughts, and our perspectives, it's not even our genders that make it different in communications, but it's also our giftings, the things that we are wired to do. Whereas, like we had just talked about the different camps, and how my son is going to engineering camp, and that's his gifting. That's how he's wired.
Others are at basketball camp.
Basketball camps, church camps are really important, So she also gets into how gender and giftings combined can affect the way we think, our perspectives, and instead of coming from a place of just purely wanting get our points across, but also stepping back and hearing what the other person has to say, and what their point is, and which is really, Jesus's model is, loving others as we love ourselves, and if we think, okay, how would I want to be loved in this situation? How do I want people to hear me or to respond to me? And then you turn around and do that for your partner or the person in your life. And and then what we're going to get into a little bit more is, which kind of this comes up between you and I a lot, is how we see color. How I can look at a color and I see hot pink or salmon or all of these different, like, fine-tuned shades range and a different name for each one, and you're like, it's red. All I see is red. Or this morning, I was
and there are times you don't even agree with red. Like, you say, no, it's orange. It's orange. You say it's red.
Not red, that's pink. It's hot pink. And then today you see orange.
That is so orange.
And I see more like copper. I see copper. This is what I see. So I look at this. I don't see orange. I see copper.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
how does that is that a serious issue?
Not necessarily serious, but sometimes when it comes to things like decorating a house, and the wife is wanting to decide on a shade of carpet, and she's got 50 shades of beige and brown she's looking at and taupe. And, the man is just like, what? It's all brown. It all looks the same, So,
So patience. It brings, it's understanding each other's particular perspectives so that we have more patience.
And patience, and maybe even just letting it go for the other person's sake, So maybe, because also, like when we look at carpeting, beige or browns or different shades, there's also cool tones, there's warm tones,
Right.
and then there's more neutral shades, and that, and all of those things are very, very important to a woman. And maybe just not to pass judgment or even expectation. So maybe, and I encounter this at the lipstick counter. There's like 50 shades of lipsticks and 20 different types of reds or pinks and corals and warm tones. And
This whole conversation is making me tired.
See, here we go. And then the woman just wants to find the exact right shade. So here we go. So maybe just let it go. Trust the woman's process in getting the right shade of beige is important, and don't judge. And women, let it go, the expectation on the man to get why getting the right exact shade of beige or brown is important.
Okay.
So maybe we just, and let the woman pick out the shade that she wants. And maybe don't,
Says the woman.
says the woman, but don't drag the man down paths that make him tired,
No,
right?
don't.
Just
Please.
just let him
Just go do it.
just let him
go
do
take care.
his part in the process of decorating the house that he's meant to do,
What part is that?
and not
I'm not sure there's a part of that.
say yes.
Say yes.
That's the part.
You know what I found out? I found out that some colors are attached to feelings
Oh, yeah.
and emotions and the way it makes you feel.
Yeah.
I mean, I got my 3 daughters and then my wife and everybody else, and I'm like, okay, wait, it's brownish. What does that mean? Or if it's green, what does that mean? Or if
Right.
and it may have a thing, and I'm like, what? I'm kind of like Bill. I'm kind of like, what? It's dark, it's light. What else?
When I was there's a time about like 30 years ago where I was painting my living room, and there was this shade of purple that had a gray undertone. It was sort of this very pretty sunset lavender, and it created this feeling of serenity in the living room that was tangible, and you just sit in this living room in this calmness that was there.
It
from
wasn't
this
Barney
color.
purple, is what it was, right? It was
It
something
wasn't,
different.
and it wasn't Easter egg. There's a purple that's sort of this Easter egg, almost childish feeling. It was a very grown up, like smoky lavender that paired really well with navy blue, and it was.
It's interesting
It was
to
very
me.
specific. If I brought in the wrong, now I had the wrong lavender up there, and it felt like an Easter egg, and it felt childish, and it just wasn't hitting my vibes right. So, but then this smoky lavender, and people would comment on how like appealing the room was when they would come in.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
more about feeling.
I think emotion is important, and I read somewhere too, like even in sales, like the way you make people feel is going to be more remembered than even what you said. Things like getting your body language right.
Do you think women are just more in touch with their feelings than men are, and therefore men can be affected by their surroundings in the same way that women can, but they're not really making the connection?
they're not able to articulate it? Yeah, absolutely.
They don't understand that's affecting them.
Yeah.
Same thing with like feng shui stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know, the Asian practice of how you arrange the furniture, how you arrange your environment, and the energy that you are able to extract from that. I don't think there's a lot of us guys that understand that world very, very much.
Well, I think part of it is, like women do have this, and it's brought up in the book, like in our brains, we have the ability to bring in some fine tuning, where men are really great with the big picture thing. Part of it is just culturally where men aren't really allowed to feel, like men are only allowed to feel so many emotions, and if they start feeling things that aren't those emotions, then they're just told to man up to swallow
Right.
it, and just to kind of power through. And whereas women are more verbal too, so even our feelings have feelings, So and they're just in the same that there's different shades of browns and grays and beiges. There's different types of feelings and fine tuning, and this feeling has feelings, So
And yet, going back to your original point, Dr. Leaf points out that it's not all about men versus women
Yeah.
brains. There's also certain giftings. And
There's
so there are
giftings,
certainly men who, shade more to the direction when we're talking about decorating or colors or feelings, sensitivity. There are certainly men that are a little more sensitive in those areas than your average guy, women who are less so
Yeah.
than your average. But part of that has to do, and part of it probably with experience, part of it with how you were raised and things, to see things a certain way.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth studying the differences between the male and female brain, while also understanding that we're all made uniquely. We are all hooked up, and it's not, in any case, it's not something that we can just think that we've got somebody figured out and write them off as being in this category or that category without really coming to know somebody and really understanding, how they're hooked up and the way they think. And I think that's going to continue to be important, no matter how much we come to understand the male and female brain. It's still going to be a challenge.
Oh, for sure.
To-
And we just got to embrace the challenge, and
Yeah.
sometimes just let it go and just agree to disagree. And
Can I bring one thing into this?
Please do, Tom.
One of Tom's little comments. My wife is very gifted at one thing, especially when it comes to decorating our house or moving furniture in. I'm usually like, well, let's move the couch in the room, shove it up against the wall.
yeah,
That looks good. My wife likes to move it around about 10 times. And of course, I have learned to go through the process of moving it around the 10 different times, because by the time we get done, I'm like, that's a really good spot.
Yeah.
That feels good. It's just I have to get through the moving around 10 times, because it works, though. It really does. Or let's try it on that side of the house and not this side of the house. So we do that back and forth. But
And it's an opportunity to build your relationship too,
Yeah.
because that means the world to her.
it does.
That you're willing to go through all of that.
And then the nice thing at the end of it, we both sit down and laugh how many times it moved around, because we counted. So it's just fun. It's really just a great thing.
Well, speaking of the way we think differently, this is how we'll leave this podcast. A couple podcasts ago, you were talking about your distaste for Chicago, and and how you were not necessarily opposed to the idea of Southern Illinois or the rest of the state finding a way at some point to break off from Chicago. So Monica is leading the charge on this, by the way. She is. So bring your complaints to her, because here's what Roger Leip, we've mentioned Roger before. Roger is a faithful follower, one of the most intelligent men that I know.
hi, Roger.
Hi, Roger. And thanks and he chimed in minutes after that particular podcast went up. He chimed in with a statistic that I think I should share. So we were a little concerned about, I was a little concerned about you understanding that we do get something from Chicago. I think your famous line was, "What has Chicago
Done for me lately?"
done for me lately?" Well, Chicago does more for us in Southern Illinois than we think, and I think we all this infrastructure and these Illinois Department of Transportation projects and other things like that we will mention from time to time. There is some level of that only happens because of the support of the rest of the state. Here to that point, Roger said this: as of last year, Southern Illinois counties received $2.40 for every dollar of taxes that we paid. So the amount of money, dollar worth of taxes that we put into the state budget, we received $2.40 back. Okay. So if we cut ourselves off from Chicago, Roger says, we would immediately become like a developing world nation in terms of infrastructure and services. We are effectively stuck with them, or maybe they are stuck with us.
Right.
Right? Yeah, we do have a certain dependence on Chicago that has developed over time. When Illinois became a state in 1818, Chicago was nothing like it is now. People forget that some of the early state capitals were deep southern Illinois area, and of course it's Springfield now. But there's always been a movement to move that to Chicago. But Chicago, even in the time of Lincoln, was not what it is now, and it has become such a metropolis that, and one of the largest in the nation and in the world. It goes without saying that being connected to it is going to allow us, if the state legislation, allows it, continues to allow it, will allow us to benefit from their success.
Okay, Chicago, I'll allow.
Is Bill a Bears fan? Is that what just happened?
Let's edit that out.
I've never been a Bears fan. No, never been a Chicago. No, I've never been. I like Chicago though.
Yeah.
I like the town. I've never been a Chicago sports fan.
I like to visit Chicago for sure when the weather's nice.
Okay.
Not in the wintertime.
So you are going to allow Chicago to stay in the
Well, yeah, we'll allow it.
Okay. So Chicago, take a sigh of relief. Monica is off of that train.
Okay.
Okay. And then thanks, Roger. I knew there was a statistic there that we needed to help.
Thank you,
help us.
Roger, for your input and for setting me straight.
Of course, our last couple of governors have come, so many of them in our lifetime have come from the Chicago area. I don't think that necessarily helps the attitude of downstate people, and it can feel like they're only going to serve themselves.
Their interests, yeah.
But again, as I think I mentioned last time, there are a lot of states that aren't created so that revenue from a city like Chicago would feed into the small towns. In this case, it does work that way. Of course, it has to be granted. I mean, there are these projects, especially these infrastructure projects, or things that go through the legislation, but it's happening to the tune of $2.40 for every dollar that we're putting into the state budget. So there you go.
Very nice.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, we settled one thing for now.
We did.
Okay. We got a lot more questions to take on and answer in the future. We've got more podcasts to discuss. We've got some special guests that we have in mind to bring on and be with us. Until then, thank you, Tom. Your input is always appreciated.
Sure.
And thank you, Monica.
And thank you, Bill.
You have a lovely orange top on today.
This is copper. This is very copper.
And what would you consider this?
Black.
Black. That's what I thought.
It's a kind of a faded black.
Yeah, it's kind of a worn out black T-shirt.
Yeah, but which is a good look. Faded black is a good look.
Okay, thank you.
It's more interesting. Yeah.
But this is what you mean about we just need to let people, who have the giftings and the brains make those decisions. If you tell me this is no good, it's gone, right? That's the way it works with us.
Yeah, and it's
Right?
good.
And you will tell me if it's no good.
I'll definitely let you know. I'm like, that is God.
No uncertain terms. Stomp all over my feelings and tell me what I need to get rid of. And that's okay. Keeps me from embarrassing myself. Anyway, we're going to go.
We're good to go.
We're going to go enjoy our day together. We're going to church camp.
Yeah, we're going to go check out Beulah. I'm so excited. This is my first time to visit.
El Dorado.
All the stories.
If you have any experience with any of our church camps, including Beulah, and there are a lot of people that I didn't know went to Beulah and El Dorado, jump on the comments or send us a note and let us know your experience with Beulah or camp I grew up in West Frankfort, Southern Illinois Christian Service Camp in West Frankfort next to the park. There are camps in Benton, Baptist camps. There are other Methodist camps and Camp Ondasonk. There's another one. Boy, have you ever been to Camp Ondasonk?
I have not.
That's a beautiful camp. Ozark, Illinois. So any of your camp experiences you want to share in the comments, we'll pass those along too. Thanks for watching. We're actually signing off now.
Okay.
All right. See you next time. Bye-bye.